What's up, everybody? It's Make It Make Sense, and Russell Simmons has been accused of taking advantage of somebody again, and we got to talk about it. Like the video as the intro plays.
I was listening to Make It Make Sense. Shout out to Make It Make Sense.
Make it make sense to me intellectually.
Make it make sense.
Make it make sense.
Big moves.
Surfer.
Make it make sense. Tell me how you squeeze it. Make it make sense. Tell me about the things that you say. Make it make sense. Tell me about the things of your dreams. Hey, let me work out all the things in between. Make it make sense. Tell me how you squeeze it. Make it make sense. Tell me about the things that you say. Make it make sense. Tell me about the things of your dreams. Hey, let me work out all the things in between. Make it make sense.
No, this is the party.
Oh, why? I just come back when everybody get here.
No, stay.
Nah, it's cool. I just come back later when everybody get here.
I said stay!
Oh, Diddy, alright, I'm here.
Party with me, Daddy.
I'll be the first one here, okay. Where everybody at?
It's just me and you in here today. Yeah. Now come dance for Brother Love.
I mean, ain't no music playing right now.
I said dance for Brother Love! Take that.
Okay. So before we get into it, I want you guys to hear how Russell feels about people coming forward in his own words.
Call that person and say, can you help me help these other women? Then you can get them to tell a story and reimagine a story. And I'm not here to say what they were thinking, but I can simply tell you that I was in so many compromising situations that people can have a recollection from 30 or 40 years ago. And it can be different from my recollection. And it could be one where there was perhaps collaboration. If we had more foursomes than most guys had once, so could someone leave and feel hurt? Could someone leave?
So basically, Russell feels like he's had more threesomes and foursomes, and sometimes there were so many people in the room, he might ask someone to leave, and then that person would get mad, and 30 to 40 years later, they would be still so angry that little Russell didn't stick his little Willie in a place that they would come back and sue him.
Leave and feel they wish they hadn't? Could someone reimagine a story out of thousands of people? Could someone want notoriety in a market where people thirst for fame, even infamous? Could someone who just came out of jail and want to sue you because they had an experience and they can reimagine it just a little bit different? And could you be vulnerable enough to accept it? I took 9 lie detector tests. People don't know that.
Russell Simmons has now been accused of taking advantage of 21 different people. Okay. So you guys know I got the complaint already. So we'll be reviewing that. This particular defendant wants to remain anonymous. And she has already filed her petition to stay anonymous. If you guys have been following, Diddy's Jane Doe accuser had not filed what she needed to file initially, and that's why Diddy was able to come back and try to contest whether she should be allowed to remain anonymous. This one is not playing any games. So here's the complaint. This lawsuit chronicles the account of how a woman who, while pursuing her career and passion as a music executive, was harassed, assaulted, battered, and R-worded by her boss, Russell Simmons, a rich and powerful celebrity whose wealth and influence allowed his abusive behavior to go unchallenged for decades. Russell Simmons is a music producer, mogul of the co-founder of Def Jam Recordings. Considered by many to be the king of hip-hop, Mr. Simmons made Def Jam the defining rap label of its era. Even after Mr. Simmons sold a stake in Def Jam for a reported $100 million in 1999, he served as an ambassador for hip-hop through comedy, clothing, and activism. Ms. Doe is an accomplished film producer. She worked as a senior-level music executive at Def Jam Recordings. Under her leadership, the video production division experienced rapid growth and expansion, producing higher quality videos that MTV then sought to play. She successfully, isn't that funny how things have changed? There's not like an MTV that's looking to really play videos. She successfully attracted renowned directors and high-end production creatives to participate in Def Jam projects. This significantly expanded the label's presence on MTV. Def Jam experienced increased airtime and exposure for their artists, leading to greater sales. What about BET? Mrs. Doe's career in the music industry was disrupted and derailed by a devastating experience at the hands of Mr. Simmons. While at first Mr. Simmons and Ms. Doe had a professional working relationship, Mr. Simmons revealed his true colors and, through his assaultive behavior, disabled Ms. Doe's career at Def Jam, a job she loved at the height of her success and financial viability. Now, we're going to get in a little bit into Drew Dixon, but if you know anything about some of the accusers, this almost mirrors exactly what happened to some of the other ladies, allegedly. Put my banner up. It's important to say that Russell Simmons has vehemently denied all allegations. Let me see. I want to get to the allegations. In or around the early 1990s, Ms. Doe started producing music videos. Many of the videos she produced were for Def Jam, though at the time she had her own independent production company. During the mid-1990s, Ms. Doe went in-house and worked for Def Jam. While at Def Jam, she was responsible for supervising all film production and a demanding release schedule for a large artist roster. Ms. Doe worked in collaboration with numerous directors, executives, and many iconic music artists to devise concepts for groundbreaking campaigns directed at a global youth market. Where is it? Oh, here we go. I think I jumped a little bit too far. On one day, Ms. Doe was required to visit Mr. Simmons' apartment, located in Manhattan, New York, in the Southern District of New York, where he typically held meetings, to have him review a new video for approval. Initially, Mr. Simmons began to wrestle with Ms. Doe in an attempt to appear playful. Who wants to wrestle with Russell Simmons? Anytime I think of Russell Simmons now, this is what comes to mind. Y'all remember this? Where he was talking to his daughter? Every time I hear Russell Simmons' name, this is what I think about. So anyway, I digress. He wants to wrestle. Because that's what bosses do, right? Initially, Mr. Simmons began to wrestle with Ms. Doe in an attempt to appear playful. The situation escalated into aggression, and Mr. Simmons pinned Ms. Doe down on the bed. Ms. Doe repeatedly told Mr. Simmons to get off her, but he refused. Mr. Simmons proceeded to R-word her. Ms. Doe was wrought with distress. At the peak of her career success at Def Jam, making award-winning videos for their biggest artists, she experienced overwhelming anxiety, shame, humiliation, and debilitating low self-esteem. She suffered frequent panic attacks, struggling to go to Def Jam offices or function in her leadership role. She tried to continue to work at Def Jam, but just a short time after the assault, to the surprise of peers and colleagues, she gave notice, quit the job she loved, and moved across the country to California. She eventually confided in a small group of trusted friends and therapists about what happened, long before passage of New York's Adult Survivors Act in 2022. Ms. Joe's shocking experience at the hands of Mr. Simmons is unfortunately just one of many. Over 20 women have accused Mr. Simmons of harassment or assault. Generally, the victims did not know each other, and there is a striking similarity of a pattern of behavior in most of the alleged assaults by Mr. Simmons. To stress the enormity of the issue, once his crimes became known, Mr. Simmons was forced to resign from many of his business ventures and several of his charitable organization boards. This complaint requests general punitive and economic damages. Let's see. So this is how she can do it. The actions described herein constitute offenses by Mr. Simmons under New York penal, blah, 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 and were committed against Miss Doe when she was over the age of 18. After Mr. Simmons assaulted her, Miss Doe quit in 1997 and worked as an executive producer for film and commercial production companies. Hold on, we got a question. It says, Miss B making you think. Mims, can we get some member emojis to use in the chat? Maybe something like straight shooters and make it make sense. Let me write that down. I will definitely look into that. Thank you for being a member. Ms. Doe brought in new business, signed exciting new talent, collaborated with A-list film directors on projects, and supervised sales team. Despite her success, Ms. Doe found it difficult to be an effective employee or remain in a position for more than a few months. Experiencing the effects of trauma from Mr. Simmons' assault, she had radically changed from the confident and enthusiastic executive known for excellent coping skills in the face of chaos. She struggled in her relationships with employers. When she encountered conflict with the supervisor, she became overwhelmed with anxiety and had to disengage. This was the opposite of how she was before the assault. An exemplary employee who could handle any conflict, known for positive and productive relationships, crew, artists, and employers. Nevertheless, from 2000 to 2018, Ms. Doe was employed by numerous studios and projects as a writer, including Netflix, 20th Century Fox, CBS Films, Columbia Pictures, Warner Brothers. Ms. Doe has a family film setup at Netflix and is adapting a child's book as a feature film. So the lady's working. I hope she wins. I really hope she wins. I hope that anybody who comes, like, I haven't heard Russell say anything that would make me feel like he didn't do this. The rest of this kind of just gives you an overview. However, when Ms. Doe first met Mr. Simmons, he was not flirtatious with her at all. In fact, they ran into each other and spoke many times in her capacity as an independent producer contracted to make Def Jam videos before she officially started to work at Def Jam in the mid-1990s. They were professional colleagues. Once employed at Def Jam, a professional relationship with Mr. Simmons continued, and Ms. Doe would deliver music videos to Mr. Simmons' apartment for review with no incident. In fact, the practice at the time was so common that many people worked in and out of Mr. Simmons' apartment. So when people say, how do you just go to your boss's apartment? She's telling you. Everybody did it. Mr. Simmons rarely sat at a desk. He would be on the treadmill or on his couch when both women and men would come over to conduct business. Ms. Doe's colleagues at Def Jam and other executives and artists frequented Mr. Simmons' apartment on a regular basis. Sometimes working there, it was a very casual environment for everybody. Mr. Simmons called people over to his Manhattan apartment all the time when he did not want to come to the office, as he lived nearby the office. If an employee or colleague could not get a hold of Mr. Simmons at the office and thus could not move forward on a project without his approval, it was common to head over to Mr. Simmons' apartment in order to show him something or get approval. Before the assault, Mr. Simmons suddenly began to turn his attention towards Ms. Doe. Mr. Simmons would arrive at Def Jam, enter Ms. Doe's office, and shut the door behind him. He would sit on her desk, lean over her, aggressively invading her personal space while making sexual innuendos, suggestions, and advances, and rubbing the front of his pants. Rubbing the front of his pants. We got like 800 in the chat. Definitely hit that like button. If you are new to the channel, please subscribe. Again, anytime I think of Russell, this is what comes to mind. He has really big veneers. His veneers are like huge, the top ones. Or maybe his mouth is just really, really small. I don't know. Y'all tell me. But I see big veneers. Anyway, I digress. Where is it? Okay. Aggressively invading her space while making innuendos, suggestions, and advances, rubbing the front of his pants. Mr. Simmons would follow Ms. Doe to the door or block her path to prevent her from opening it again. This happened repeatedly during that time period. Mr. Simmons' harassment of Ms. Doe in the office was so pervasive that when a senior executive became aware of Mr. Simmons was in the building and had gone to her office, he immediately went to Ms. Doe's office, banged on the door, and opened it to yell at Mr. Simmons to leave. Wow. Mr. Simmons' harassment of Ms. Doe in the office was so pervasive that when a senior executive became aware Mr. Simmons was in the building and had gone to her office, he immediately went to Ms. Doe's office, banged on the door, and opened it to yell at Mr. Simmons to leave. So she's setting a pattern. If, and I believe her, but if these allegations are true, she should be able to compel this person to testify if it goes to trial. On one occasion, Ms. Doe brought to Mr. Simmons' apartment a rough cut of a video she needed him to view for approval. Mr. Simmons aggressively and relentlessly flirted with Ms. Doe, made sexual innuendos and advances, asked explicit questions, including personal questions about her preferences, and questioning if she was currently wearing a bra. But remember, y'all, earlier on, he was telling us this. Let me take this off, though.
Nine separate, 7 from the chairman of the Polygraph Association, 1 for each of the serious accusations, 1 for when someone said, for instance, I was violent. One person said that. I've never been violent. Took that. 1 for I apologized. I never apologized about assaulting anyone. But if 2 people say it, because one said it and me too, and the second person said it, then I took a test for it. 3 hours per test by 2 polygraph examiners.
Then why are you out of the country? If you are innocent, why have you fled the country?
One that I've never done this to anyone, and one I've never done to each individual. Some people say that they're not accurate, but if they're 94% accurate, I did 9 of them. It's pretty clear that I don't believe it. I even asked what if I believe it, but it's not true? He said, your subconscious will get you. I don't know how true that is, but that's what was told to me by the chairman of the Polygraph Association. He was filmed, by the way, talking about this. So there's footage available. No one in the mainstream would cover that.
Why do you think that is?
There's a narrative.
Which is what?
I want y'all to see what he's doing in this video. I can't show you the video. Why are you in Bali? Why have you fled the continent, technically? If you are innocent, why run? Okay. On this day, Ms. Doe was wearing professional attire, including a suit jacket, and pants. Ms. Doe responded by telling Mr. Simmons to cut it out and stop it, trying to deflect his attention, refocus on the work, while trying not to sound accusatory or bruise his ego. Mr. Simmons brought Ms. Doe to a bedroom to watch the rough cut. It was not uncommon practice for Mr. Simmons to conduct business in a bedroom while sitting on the bed. Mr. Simmons had a childlike and playful demeanor and began jumping on the bed while continuing to make advances and asking Ms. Doe to do it with him. What? You are jumping on the bed. What? So it's kind of like that Peter Pan, Michael Jackson thing? Is that what we're supposed to believe? Ms. Doe responded by saying no and treating the suggestion as though it was a ridiculous idea while being cautious not to offend Mr. Simmons. All of a sudden, Mr. Simmons performed a wrestling move, climbing on top of Ms. Doe and pinning her arms down to the bed. Ms. Doe began to sweat profusely. Mr. Simmons then sat on top of Ms. Doe, insisting they should do it. Ms. Doe rejected his advance and told him to get off and stop several times. She told him she was serious and she meant it, but Ms. Doe was forcefully pinned, could not move under his weight, and Mr. Simmons would not listen to her. She tried to repeatedly get up. Undeterred, Mr. Simmons ignored Ms. Doe's resistance and proceeded to R-word her. After it was over, Mr. Simmons left the room. As Ms. Doe pulled herself together to leave, Mr. Simmons called Ms. Doe to a bathroom where he was now taking a bath with the door open and attempted to talk about work for a few minutes before dismissing Mrs. Doe to go back to the office. You take advantage of somebody, run in to shower, because who knows where Kimura is at, start talking about work again, and then send her away? That's trash. After the assault, Miss Doe went back to the office, but was forever changed. For weeks, she told no one about what happened. She experienced severe disassociation, depression, and anxiety. She no longer went to the Def Jam offices regularly to work and came up with reasons to work from a nearby apartment. A short time later, Miss Doe gave notice, left Def Jam, and left New York altogether to move to California, where her family was living. Because of Mr. Simmons, Ms. Doe gave up her high-powered dream job running a thriving division she had built and a large salary. The pride she had for her role in helping transition a marginalized music genre to one of the most popular and lucrative in the world was gone. Ms. Doe took a series of short-lived positions in LA, marketing her skills as a crossover brand creator, branding her experience in diversity in hip-hop to Hollywood, and creating music video divisions for commercial and film companies. But at the same time, she was experiencing debilitating anxiety, had difficulty handling emotions in a professional setting, unexplained mood shifts, and severe depression. Formerly an exemplary employee with nothing but positive and productive relationships with male employers, Ms. Doe became defensive, anxious, and sensitive. Her value as a leader, problem solver, and diplomat diminished significantly. Interactions with male employers were fraught with tension. The slightest conflict became heightened and emotional. She suffered panic attacks and developed an eating disorder. She sought therapy and was diagnosed with general anxiety disorder. In a 2-year period after the assault, Ms. Doe left 3 jobs at high-end production companies after struggling to handle stressful interactions or conflicts with her employers. 2017 was a year of reckoning for abusers and harassers whose power and wealth had previously shielded them from accountability. The Me Too movement exploded into a global phenomenon, and seemingly untouchable people in the power suddenly found their past actions catching up with them. In November 2017, Mr. Simmons and filmmaker Brett Ratner were accused of teaming up to engage in an assault against model Carrie Clausen. December 13th, the New York Times published an extensive article of Mr. Simmons where multiple women came forward accusing Mr. Simmons of assault. In each case described, numerous friends and associates confirmed that they were told of the incident at the time of the assaults several years prior. In 2020, the documentary On the Record premiered at Sundance and was released digitally on HBO Max. Like the New York Times article, this documentary covered allegations of the R word and sexual misconduct against Mr. Simmons. When Ms. Doe learned about the accounts of the other survivors, she was struck by how similar they were to her own horrible experience at the hands of Mr. Simmons. Ms. Doe revealed to family members, friends, and therapists that Mr. Simmons had assaulted her as well. This was long before the Adult Survivors Act presented an opportunity to hold Mr. Simmons accountable for his actions by suspending the statute of limitations for sexual assault matters. Now, y'all, when I was just doing a little research for this real quick, did you know that Oprah was supposed to be backing that documentary and she pulled out? Says, why did Oprah drop out of the Russell Simmons documentary? Some people believed it was because Russell was harassing her. Although Winfrey has admitted that Simmons repeatedly urged her not to trust the female subject at the center of the film, which is Drew Dixon, she said she ultimately drew her executive producer title from the project, thereby scuttling the film's distribution deal with Apple TV Plus after discussions with other individuals. So Drew Dixon she had a very similar story. Went to Stanford, high-powered executive, and allegedly Russell did the same thing to her. I was just curious why Oprah, who is a survivor, wouldn't go through with it. It said January 17th interview with the New York Times stated that Winfrey still believed Dixon, but thought there were inconsistencies in her account. In addition, Winfrey said that the director, Ava DuVernay, found the movie titled On the Record problematic, as did someone she knew and trusted who cast doubts on Miss Dixon's story. Had y'all heard this before? Okay, so you heard it before. Oh, yes, because he had something on her. No, I didn't hear that. But a lot of y'all are saying it. How about this? It gets messy. So Drew starts thinking, who do I know? Who do I know? It says, now Dixon believes she knows who that person was. Tina Perry, the president of the Oprah Winfrey Network, who was also one of Drew Dixon's sorority sisters when the two attended Stanford University. Let's see. Okay, so it says blah 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 blah. Shortly after the announcement, the filmmakers told Dixon they'd heard from Oprah's team that a trusted friend who has known Drew through Def Jam and Arista had told Winfrey that Dixon was not a reliable source. Amy and Kirby kept asking me, do you know anybody who fits the description? Dixon said, that's a teeny tiny universe of people. I don't think so. Like, how is she connected to somebody connected to Oprah? Then all of a sudden, I was like, oh, snap, my sorority sister, Tina Perry. In a statement, Perry acknowledged that she and Dixon were friends and sorority sisters, but we haven't spoken in decades. Perry continued, I was sad to learn about her horrible experience with Russell Simmons at his apartment. The OWN executive added, I commend Drew for her strength and courage to come forward and tell her story. But you're telling Oprah to pull the plug. Oprah, being connected to it, gets it the distribution it needs. A source close to the situation confirmed that Perry advised pulling the film out of Sundance, but stressed that the executive was one of a number of people in Winfrey's inner circle, including, DuVernay and Terry Wood, executive vice president of Harpo Productions. The group was worried about perceived inconsistencies in Drew's story. This person said, while declining to go on the record with any specific concerns, they also felt strong and emotionally wrenching elements of other accusers' stories have been left out. So let me get into this. This girl, or, Oprah's friend who told her to pull out of this documentary, Drew tells a story about her. She says, Perry was 2 years behind Dixon at Stanford, but the two kept in touch after graduation. Around 1999, when Perry began working in New York City at the law firm Kravitz, Swain, and Moore, the two reconnected. Dixon said Dixon had moved on from Def Jam and was serving as vice president of A&R at Arista. She said that Perry was interested in pursuing entertainment law, so Dixon began inviting her to observe recording sessions with artists like Lauryn Hill and Q-Tip. That sounds like a pretty good friend to me. Sounds like a pretty good friend to me. I'm bringing her along and trying to say, be a fly on the wall. This is how I learned. Just see how the moves are and make some connections if you want to be an entertainment lawyer. She was kind of like a baby sister to me, right? But slowly, Dixon said, private details from those professional visits began to spread around town. It would get back to me through the grapevine, Dixon said. So I'm like, Tina, honey, I get this is exciting. I get you want to be in the entertainment industry. But when I let you spend time in my office or I chat with you about my work, I'm trying to help you learn the industry. That can't come back to me. I literally can't bring you around these people if you're treating it as gossip. Eventually, Dixon said the behavior caused Dixon to sever the friendship, and she and Perry lost touch. So you got somebody who was trying to help a friend. They're telling people around town what's going on in your private recording sessions with artists. So you sever the friendship, and 20 years later, now all of a sudden that woman is in a place of power to tell Oprah, don't associate yourself with this woman's documentary about her abuse at the hands of Russell Simmons. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. So here we go. Finish this up. Over the years, Ms. Doe encountered Mr. Simmons in some social settings and for a short time was employed at a company he co-founded. She worked hard to normalize interactions with this looming figure in the entertainment industry. Shockingly, Mr. Simmons' callous R-word of Ms. Doe was not enough. In and around March of 2023, Ms. Doe went to a crowded yoga class in Los Angeles and inadvertently parked her yoga mat next to Mr. Simmons after not speaking with him for several years. Mr. Simmons said her name, and Ms. Doe looked up in shock to see him, asking, "Is it okay if I practice here?" Mr. Simmons leaned towards her and whispered, "Of course. What do you think? I'm going to try to F you?" What? That's disgusting. Right, Silver Blue. Right. Ms. Doe was horrified. She realized not only was he unapologetic towards her personally, he did not appreciate that the assault was wrong. So I let you guys at the start of this kind of hear in his own words what he felt about the people coming forward. Let's see if I still have that up. Here we go. This is in Russell Simmons' own words. He thinks that these people put him in compromising positions and that just people who he didn't give it to are disgruntled and trying to come after him.
Simply tell you that I was in so many compromising situations that people can have a recollection from 30 or 40 years ago. And it can be different from my recollection. And it could be one where there was perhaps collaboration. We had more foursomes than most guys had once. Could someone leave and feel hurt? Could someone leave and feel they wish they hadn't? Could someone reimagine a story out of thousands of people? Could.
So again, Russell feels like people were upset because he did not give them the D, and that's why they're coming forward. I hope she wins. I hope she gets all of it. And I already let you guys know that Russell is being sued, or not sued. Russell is suing the federal government because Kimora used shares of this Celsius water to get her husband out of jail. The government's arguing that Russell didn't really technically own these shares. He had given them away. He says that he does. The shares were worth like $800 million, and he says half of those are his, which would give him $400 million worth of shares of this water company. The government is fighting back. They tried to get the case dismissed last month. As of today, the courts have said we're not going to dismiss the case. So he has a shot of getting his money. He has a shot. Renee Flood, thank you so much for joining the membership. Guys, we got like 1,300 in the chat, but somebody said we don't even have 400 likes. So definitely hit that like button. If you are new to the channel, please subscribe. Yeah, blaming the victims. Renee Flood, thank you so much. And again, Ms. B, I will look into getting those emojis. But y'all, it's been a busy day for me. I haven't even eaten yet. So if you're in the replay gang, tell me how you feel. Do you feel like people are just coming out of the woodwork to try to come and get Russell? Or do you think that what they're saying is valid? Let me know. I got to go because I'm hungry. Y'all have a good day. If you didn't see my Monique video, definitely check that one out. I will link it at the end of this video. Have a good one, y'all.